Hello, this is Bob Gray Sr. Welcome to Ministry Moments. Lord willing, every Friday at 3 o'clock Central Time, we'll come to you. And this is a little bit of an unusual broadcast today because of all that's going on in our nation. And I want to talk to you, and maybe you want to get a pen out and write some things down. I think it might help. When you don't know the facts, you live on fiction. When you live on fiction, then you have a tremendous fault that will occur in morality, in public morality, private morality. And the only hope that we have is through Christ, through salvation, and then through service. And the more aggressive we are at winning souls and getting people saved, getting them baptized, putting them in small Sunday school classes and teaching them and helping them to grow, the greater the impact we're going to have. It's not going to be from top down, it's got to be from bottom up. And we, in the 60s and the 70s and the 80s, saw great churches all over this nation that were aggressive soul winners. If you were to talk about the denominator, it would be the bus ministry. It would be a large number of small Sunday school classes, an aggressive soul winning pastor, and an aggressive soul winning church. I want to talk to you today, and I'm going to come around to the solution here in a minute, but about anarchy or anarchists. The break down the word anarchist, the A-N at the beginning means without. The archy, A-R-C-H-Y, anarchy or anarchist, means human authority. And so in the definition of anarchists or anarchy is without human authority. God never intended for there to be a society or for man to have his world around him unsettled by not establishing authority for peace sake. I wrote this down. If you find you have to choose between righteousness and peace, always choose righteousness. In Proverbs 14:34, the Bible says, righteousness exalteth a nation. Now listen carefully. It does not say being righteous, righteousness, the activity. It's not being righteous. But God said, I'll hold a nation up that's has righteousness, or actively winning souls, actively praying, actively doing what they're supposed to. Righteousness, the activity of a righteous person, is what exalts a nation. That's what gets God's attention. If you don't have an aggressive soul winning program, you're not going to get God's attention. Now, by the way, you get the devil's attention too. But when you keep on going, then God will come to your aid and God will help you. Now, it's just sad what's happened in our nation, isn't it? At one point, we had 5,000 National Guards activated in 15 states, including Washington, D.C. And what a terrible picture that gave out to the world about freedom and about democracy. And may I add, I agree that we have those that are set on destroying this nation, and they take advantage of this. You can fuss about it all you want to, but the truth is they are people who do not believe in democracy. They want to defund the police. Can you imagine? That's what's going to, the day after the rapture, you're going to see this thing all over again, only a whole lot worse. Let me give you some stats here. The Washington Post did an interesting study of 2019. Here's what they found. By the way, they're one of the first papers that has gone into the statistical area to try to prove a point, and I think it's a good way to do it. In 2019, there were 10 million arrests in America. Now, there's 325 million of us. 10 million were arrested. 1,004 fatal shootings by police. Out of 10 million arrests, there were 1,004 fatal shootings by police. These are facts. It's not fiction. 14 of those were unarmed. 19 of those were unarmed white people, Caucasian. 9 unarmed were black people. 89 policemen were killed. 82 shot, 19 dead last week in Chicago alone. Now, this is not a political statement, but all those places that are erupting are run by liberals. They say, Dr. Gray, are you a Democrat or Republican? I'm neither, I'm independent. But the truth is the truth. And we need more facts being talked about than getting the emotions all worked up to where we do something stupid. Now I see white people kneeling on the streets and begging for forgiveness. What in the world? There are no facts to back up a black person kneeling or a white person kneeling to some other human being showing a guilt complex. Now, Romans 13, verses 1 through 7, give us a clear thing about human authority, the thought. Let me give it to you. Let every soul be subject unto higher powers, for there's no power but of God. The powers that be are ordained of God. Verse 2, whosoever therefore resisteth the power, resisteth the ordinance of God. And that they resist shall receive to themselves damnation. For rulers are not a terror to good works, but to the evil. Wilt thou then not be afraid of the power? Do that which is good, and thou shalt have praise of the same. For he is the minister of God. These policemen are ministers, these judges, this order that God has established. Now, it's not the highest power, but it is higher power than we. Verse 4, for he is the minister of God to thee for good. But if thou do not that which is evil, but if thou do that which is evil, be afraid. For he beareth not the sword in vain. For he is the minister of God, a revenger to execute wrath upon him that doeth evil. Wherefore ye must needs be subject not only for wrath, but also for conscience sake. For this cause pay ye tribute also, that's your taxes. For they are God's ministers, attending continually on this very thing. Verse 7, render therefore to all their dues, tribute to whom tribute is due, custom to whom custom, fear to whom fear, honor to whom honor. We are, and in fact, the very next verse says, oh, no man. Now, that's not talking about money. That's talking about tribute. It's talking about honor. It's talking about praise. Now, everybody got arrested in New York was set free. Every one of them. Because of the no bail policy that they came up with in New York. Where'd those people go? Right back on the streets. You're seeing anarchy. You're seeing anarchists set free. No restraint. Just steal what you want to steal, tear down what you want to tear down. Now, what in the world is the answer? Let me give it to you. We got ourselves in trouble when we started cutting back on the buses. The police call it community policing. The bus ministry is the best tool used of the 60s, the 70s, and the 80s. And by the way, D.L. Moody ran a wagon routes in Chicago. He got the street urchins. In fact, the Congregationalists didn't like him because he's reaching these poor people, these children, trying to get the gospel to them. He knew, he understood. Hitler himself said, if I can get to the children, I can get to the population. So it's a rule that can be used for good and bad. That's why you see these parents bringing their little kids out to steal and hold up ungodly signs. It's unbelievable. But what's the answer? The bus ministry. Get your buses going. I know you've cut them back to 5 or 6, and boy, your buildings look good. You're really sharp, boy. You got the best looking buildings in town while the world burns around you. Number 2, an aggressive soul winning pastor. Pastor, you've got to get out of that office. You've got to get out where the people are. You have to win souls. Set the example. You scream about it all day long. Well, touch their lives, and then we can touch their souls. I don't know where you're coming up with all this garbage. I'm telling you, you're just a coward. Get out there on the streets. I spend 15 hours a week, the 2 churches I pastor, out on the streets. 15 hours. Getting where the people are. Winning souls. Picking them up. Bringing them to church. Putting them in Sunday school class. I'm just telling you, until we get the buses rolling again. Get the bus ministry out there. Get your people out there. Get you a bus captain, a bus driver, a secretary. Get a family to work around. And start building those things again. Oh, I know it's hard work, but we wouldn't want to do anything hard, would we? It just may keep your city from burning down. Number 3. Number 1, aggressive bus ministry. Number 2, an aggressive pastor, soul winning wise. Number 3, aggressive leaders. The people in your church who are leaders, your Sunday school teachers, your deacons, your ushers, anybody who holds an office of any kind, especially those deacons, get them out on the streets. Get them out on the streets. Now, if you're trying to build a Taj Mahal and you're trying to build something, boy, you see what the liberals have, and that's in these liberal fundamental Baptist churches, and you think, oh, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to get it. You know, there's also only so many transfers in town. But boy, that city is filled with sinners. It's filled with people headed to hell. And God will take care of all the rest of it. It'll be fine. But we need an aggressive bus ministry again. We need an aggressive soul winning pastor again. And we need aggressive leaders again, soul winning leaders. I mean, the commission, Great Commission given to the church, the pastor ought to organize the soul winning of the church and bring it together. But there's also a commandment. You're supposed to win souls on Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday, Thursday and Friday and Saturday and Sunday, not just on Thursday night if that's your soul winning night, or not just on Monday night. That's the commission part. Now, the commandment part is to do it every day. We had a mailbox out in front of the office at Longview Baptist Temple. People led people to Christ. They'd fill out a converse slip and drop it in that box. That thing had names in it Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday and Friday. And our people were soul winning people every day. Now, we then gave those names to people to follow up aggressively, to follow up. We had 7 different ways of contacting those people in one 7-day period. It was organized. It worked. Now, I'm saying you've got to have an aggressive soul winning pastor. We've got to have an aggressive bus ministry winning souls. We've got to have aggressive leaders out there on the streets, knocking on doors, getting the gospel to people. They've got to do it in their daily walk every day, but they've also got to show up for soul winning night. God pity you, Pastor. Well, you know, I'd go soul winning, but I've got a very important counseling appointment. You people go on. I'll pray for you while you're bad at lying. You know that. And your people are wondering, well, how come he never takes anybody with him? Somewhere in here, if we're not careful, there are not enough police to protect us. There's not enough National Guard to protect us. It didn't do any good, did it? They put the police in one place and the rioters go to another place. This day of high tech, buddy, they're talking to each other about where to go. The only way to stop it is not with the police. It's not with the National Guard. Thank God for a strong president. Thank God for a strong president. Thank God. And when you see people kneeling to these rioters, it means I surrender. Don't surrender to them. Don't surrender at all. But we're going to have to do more than just fight with them in the streets. We're going to have to go door to door. We've got to have an aggressive bus ministry. We had up to 40 routes at Longview Baptist Temple, and God blessed it. We've got to get back to it. We've got to get back to an aggressive pastor. I won people to Christ every week, or still do, every week of the world. I walk people down that aisle every Sunday. Converts, you've got to do it. Number 3, aggressive leaders. You shouldn't have a deacon that doesn't go soul winning. You shouldn't have people in a place of position that don't win souls. Now, if they're struggling with it, help them, go with them, help them to do it. I mean, I wouldn't fire everybody. I get them fired up. That's what I do. And then Number 4, you don't change. Be aggressive in your holiness, your righteousness, and separation. Be strong. You know, one of the reasons some of these great churches survived all the attacks they survived because they were constantly preaching about separation from the world, and the people worked at it. And when an enemy from the outside, it's always that way. You look at the book of Acts, it's outside attack, inside attack, outside attack, inside attack. Just the way that it goes. It's the way it is with a nation. It's just Satan's. You're not ignorant of his devices. He attacks us from the outside, and then attacks us from the inside, and attacks the outside. Same thing with the local church. Well, we've got to stop the burning down of our cities. And the only way to start is not top down. You don't spank a kid one time and say, well, that took care of that. I won't have to spank that kid again. You don't preach on tithing one time and say, well, took care of that. I won't have to preach on that again. No, you could have to be over and over and over again, hammering that same truth over and over again. And you can't rest on the laurels of your past. I don't care what the greatness of your church is, the greatness of your ministry is. You can't rely on what you've done in the past. You stop and think about that 2-year-old was born 10 years ago, is 12 now, 13. And they're picking up rocks and they're getting involved. Some of it didn't reach them. Busmen should have gone to that area and taken time, knock on that door and show the love of Christ and lead these folks to Christ and put them on a bus route, have a lot of fun, bring them to church, give them small Sunday school classes where they can be loved and cared for, not just a number. And I'm for big numbers. I'm for a lot of Sunday school. At our peak, we had 171 Sunday school classes. I love it. But they were small in the sense of got to be able to reach the student. You've got to be able to love them, got to be able to help them. Romans chapter 13 makes it clear. God is the highest power, but he on purpose delegates to men power, and he calls them ministers for good, not evil. Now, if you do evil, they're a threat to you. If you're doing good, they're not a threat to you. My wife, bless her heart, she's 75. She has never had, listen to this now, she has never had a speeding ticket. She's never had a parking ticket. She's never had an accident. And when she drives down the road, honestly, and she doesn't drive now, but she'd set that, if it was 25, she'd set that cruise at 25. She's a little old lady from Pasadena. And she would. She never worried about the police. Me, I'm in a hurry. Besides, I'm under grace, not the law. And by the way, why do those policemen hide in the bushes? Get out there where we can see you. But I constantly, I got to get somewhere. And then I say, hey, whoa, slow down. You're going to get a ticket if you don't. Now, what restrains me are the police and the laws. And what's going to restrain you is going to be the authorities that God places there. Brother Roloff used to say, it's not these higher powers bother me. It's all these little lower powers that are bothering me. and he was right. Don't forget when I mentioned Proverbs 14:34, righteousness exalteth the nation. It's not being righteous. It's not being righteous. When Abraham tried to help Lot, Sodom and Gomorrah was destroyed. Obviously, they couldn't find 10 righteous people. But wait a minute. Why weren't there more righteous people? Because there was not righteousness. You have to go soul winning. Righteous, actively being righteous, actively being separated from the world, actively running buses, actively building Sunday school classes, actively reaching your community. You can't do it one time and the rest on the laurels of the name and the reputation of your church. I don't care how great your church was in the past, we're in trouble now because we don't have aggressive bus ministries. We don't have aggressive pastors. We don't have aggressive leaders. Now, if you want to be a layman, sit in the pew and use, I can't do that. Well, then fine, sit there and tithe and help the rest of us do it. But in God's dear name, somebody's going to have to rise to the occasion. This is a spiritual warfare that's going to end up in physical destruction. Government is given for this. I wrote these 3 things down out of Romans 13. They're here to protect your person, government, here to protect your property, and they're here to protect your personal freedom. Let me say it again. Government's given to protect your person, protect your property, and protect your personal freedom. Now, if the police got 1,000 and the looters are 10,000, I wonder who's going to win. If 5,000 National Guard come out, but you've got 20,000 rioters, I wonder who's going to win, especially when they got the megaphone there and having mob mentality, creating a bunch of anarchists. I wonder who's going to win. I'm pleading with you. This is your generation now. This is your generation. I'm in my 48th year. I've given it my all from day one. I'm calling on you, be an aggressive bus running church again. Preach on it, teach on it. Get the people stirred up to do that. And then you be an aggressive person. If you don't do anything, Pastor, get people down the aisle, have a one convert a week baptized for 52 weeks. That's 52. If only 26 of them survive, that's 26. Then have aggressive leadership. You get your soul winning Sunday school teachers, get soul winning ushers, get soul winning choir members, get soul winning orchestra and pianists and organists, get soul winning leadership, soul winning deacons, get that way throughout the week, Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday. They'll be out there doing their business, going about there, but they're out there leading people to Christ. And then come together on a giant. We used to have a giant Thursday night sorting time, and then get fired up about going out and winning somebody. Don't come back unless you win somebody to Christ. Be aggressive about it. And then you make sure that you have holiness, separation, strong stand on your position. Don't you become like the world. By the way, you go ahead and build your Taj Mahal. You have the best looking fundamental church in the South or in the North or the East, the West. You go ahead and do that and let your city burn around you. Well, you got to touch their lives. You don't let this social gospel thing get a hold of you. These are words you don't like, but you're a snowflake. You're not a warrior. You're not a spiritual warrior. You're not a soldier for Christ. Man, you're getting all the goodies, Eddie. You're like Eli eating off the fat. Now, time for us to get with it. And we can do it. It happened before in the 60s. Guess what happened in the 60s? In the 60s, you had the Jesus crowd. The Jesus freak, the long-haired hippies, and making fun of fundamentalists. I remember I was in New Orleans, and my wife and I were going to preach for a child evangelism thing, and I walked across the street. We were going in. I said, "Look, go over and witness them real quick." And I went across the street with my wife and witnessed to some men, long-haired fellows standing there, and I gave them the gospel. And one guy turned a whip dry. He said, "You're a fundamentalist, aren't you?" I said, "Yeah, I am." He said, "What made you think that we weren't saved?" I said, "I didn't know, so I thought I'd ask you." He said, "That's what's wrong with you fundamentalists. You judge us by the outside, our long hair. That's what you judged us by." I said, "Let me ask you a question. What made you think I was a fundamentalist? Was it my short haircut?" This is crazy, isn't it? If we don't get with it, our cities are going to burn, and you're going to lose everything you've ever worked for. Now, it's time to start building churches again. It's time to start baptizing every week. It's time to get these boys and girls, run those buses. Pick up the boys and girls, have an organized Sunday school program. Be aggressive about it. Be aggressive personally as a pastor. You get somebody down the aisle every week. Don't get mad at them. Your people, you get mad at yourself. You get somebody down the aisle. Then whatever you do, you Holy Ghost power, separation from the world. Oh, it's so important. Holiness is knocking on heaven's door. Righteousness is knocking on a sinner's door. We've got to get back to it. We have got to challenge our people and challenge yourself, Pastor, to build a great church again. Win your city to Christ. God bless you. It can be done, or God wouldn't have told us to do it. It happened in the 60s. It happened in the 70s. I saw it. I was in the middle of it. And then in the 80s and 90s, we did it in Texas. I mean, God's not a respecter of person. God doesn't love Jack Hyles more than he does you. God didn't love Lee Robertson more than he does you. Now, he loves me more than you, but that has nothing to do with it, does it? God bless you. Join us every Friday, Ministry Moments, 3 o'clock. I think you'll find something to be of help to you. A little bit different today, but I felt like it was needed. God bless you. Have a great soul-winning weekend.